The story begins at university, where a professor is teaching his students. After the class ends, he tells students that he has written a very difficult math problem on the board outside. Whoever solves it will not only receive praise, but will also have their name recorded in the college records. After saying this, the professor leaves. In the same college, there is a janitor named Will Hunting. He also sees the problem and tries to solve it at home. The next day, he comes back and writes something on the board. Will has 3 friends, Chucky, Billy, and Morgan. On the other side, some students approach the professor and tell him that they are second-year students. They say that today is Saturday, a holiday, so he don't want to work. One of the girls says that they can't wait for name who solved the problem. Hearing this, the professor goes with the students to the board where he had written the problem. When he sees the answer, it is completely correct. He is surprised and asks his talented students if they solved it. Meanwhile, Will is watching a baseball game with his friends. Suddenly, he sees a boy and tells his friends that this boy used to bully him a lot. After the game, Will and his friends leave to get some food. While they are driving, Will sees that same boy walking nearby. He gets out of the car and reminds him of their past. Then, Will starts hitting him. His friends join in, and soon a fight breaks out between both groups. Will beats up the boy badly. But before things get worse, the police arrive and arrest him. Meanwhile, the professor comes to class, and everyone is curious to know the name of the genius who solved the difficult math problem on the board. The professor asks the person who solved it to come forward and share their name, but no one stands up. Seeing this, the professor says that maybe the genius won't reveal themselves today. Then, he announces to the class that he and his colleagues have written another complex math problem on the board outside. This problem took 2 years to solve, and now it is another challenge for the students. After this, the professor leaves. The next day, the professor and his colleagues visit the board. They see Will writing something on it. As they start walking toward him, Will notices them coming and quickly leaves. The professor says that the problem was meant for students, not for a janitor. Will apologizes and walks away. Just then, one of the professor's colleagues calls him back. When the professor looks at the blackboard, he is shocked. Will has solved the problem in just a few minutes. One of Will's friends starts flirting with some girls pretending to be a history student from a prestigious class. Just then, another guy walks up and starts making fun of him. He asks difficult history questions that Will's friend cannot answer. At that moment, Will steps in. Not only does he answer all the questions correctly, but he also shares knowledge even the other guy doesn't know. In the end, Will tells him, "You can only learn from books, but life is about experience." He adds, "All the knowledge you spent thousands of dollars on in school, you could have gotten for free from a library." Hearing this, the 2 girls sitting nearby are impressed. One of them, a beautiful girl named Skylar, approaches Will, gives him her number, and leaves. After this, Will and his friends leave the bar. The next day, Will goes to court because of the fight he had with his friends. Will wants to defend himself in court, as he has done before. But the judge looks at his record and says, "I've been reviewing your file for 10 minutes. You have fought many cases on your own before. You once stole a car. I also know that you grew up in different orphanages, but the government removed you from 3 of them. This time, I won't let you go. You will be sent to jail, and your bail is set at $50,000. As this happens, Professor Gerald is sitting in court. Later, when Will is sent to jail, the professor visits him. He tells Will, "I've spoken to the judge. He is willing to let you go, but under 2 conditions. First, you must study mathematics under me. Second, you must see a therapist. If you refuse either of these conditions, I will make sure you go back to jail." Will doesn't want to meet a therapist, but he has no other choice if he wants to get out of jail. So, he agrees to the conditions. He starts working with Professor Gerald, solving complex math problems. However, when different therapists come to see him, Will refuses to take them seriously. He mocks them by making fun of them. Because of this, none of the therapists stay. Seeing this, Gerald visits an old classmate named Shawn, who is now a psychology professor. He asks Shawn to counsel Will. At first, Shawn refuses, saying, "I'm too busy," but Gerald insists, saying, "Will is different." In the first session, there is a painting in the room. It was made by Shawn. The painting shows a boat with a man sitting in it. The sea is stormy, and the sky looks like it is about to fall on the boat. Will says, "You married the wrong woman. She left you and ran away with someone else." When Will insults his wife, Shawn becomes angry. He walks up to Will, grabs him by the collar, and warns him, "You can say whatever you want about me, but don't talk about my wife." After this, their session for today ends. Will goes to meet the girl named Skylar. She is the one he met at the bar. The next day, Shawn meets Will again. This time, he takes Will to a park and talks to him calmly. He says, "You may have read a lot of books, but do you really understand life? Have you ever loved someone deeply? You can analyze paintings, but have you ever felt something?" Will listens but doesn't say anything. Shawn continues, "You think think you're smarter than everyone, but you don't open up to anyone. You push people away before they can get close to you. Will doesn't know how to respond, so he just sits there quietly. This is the first time someone has challenged him in a way that makes him think. Shawn continues, you think you know everything, but you don't. You're just a scared kid who hides behind his intelligence. For the first time, Will doesn't have a sarcastic reply. He looks away, avoiding eye contact. Shawn then says, I don't care how smart you are. I care about who you really are. After this, he realizes that Shawn is different from others. He doesn't try to control him, but he understands him. This time, he doesn't try to dodge his questions. Instead, he listens. Shawn notices the change. Will tells that he went on a date with a girl, but this time, he didn't call her back. Shawn asks, why? Will replies, so that I would know if she is the one. Now I realize, she's perfect, she's smart, and I just want to let it be. Shawn asks, do you think she's perfect? He says even your girl isn't perfect. But the real question is, are you two perfect for each other? If you truly love her, stop being afraid. There's no such thing as a perfect girl or a perfect relationship. Love means accepting someone, flaws and all. Will starts to understand. He has been pushing people away his whole life, but perhaps it's time to change. For the first time, he loses track of time during the session. Usually, he would count the minutes until it was over, but today, the conversation feels different. When Shawn tells him the session is over, Will is surprised. After this, Will decides to meet Skylar. Skylar asks, where have you been? Will replies, I was busy with work. They go out together, and this time, Will enjoys being with her. In the next session, Shawn and Will start talking again. Shawn shares a story from his past. He says, it was October 1975. My friends and I stood in line all night to get tickets for a match. The next day, we finally got in, and the stadium was packed with 35,000 people. It was an amazing moment, but I wasn't there. I had a ticket, but I didn't go. Will asks, why? Shawn replies, because I met a girl. I gave up that ticket to spend time with someone I barely knew. I spent 18 wonderful years with her. She died 6 years ago, but I don't regret missing that game for a second. Shawn explains to Will that real love and life can't be learned from books. It's about taking risks, making choices, and opening up to people. As time goes on, Will keeps meeting with Skylar, and his relationship with Skylar grows deeper. One day, Professor Gerald visits Shawn and asks, how is the therapy going? He asked about his future. Shawn says that the conversation hasn't reached that point yet. Gerald explained he had arranged a big company interview for him, but Will, instead of going himself, he sent his friend to attend the interview. Meanwhile, Skylar invites him to move with her to California University, but he refuses. She pushes him to open up, but he avoids the conversation. She confronts him. Tell me if you don't love me, I'll leave. Will says, I don't love you. Later, Will meets Professor and tells him he doesn't care about solving mathematical problems anymore. Then he goes to meet Shawn. Shawn asks Will if he has anyone he can talk to about his deepest thoughts. Will mentions his best friend, Chucky. Shawn replies, Chucky would die for you, but he can't understand what's in your heart. Will then lists famous authors, but Shawn says they're all dead. They can't answer your questions. Shawn pushes Will further. What do you really want to do with your life? Will says, I want to herd goats. Shawn says, I don't have time for your nonsense. Shawn sighs. At least I had the courage to love and lose. You are too scared to even try. Shawn then says, I asked you a simple question. What do you want? You can solve the hardest problems, but you can't answer that. Will leaves, but Shawn's words stay with him. Despite being a genius, Will is still lost. His painful past holds him back, and he doesn't know what he truly wants. Now, Skylar is leaving for California. Before going, she says, I love you, but he just stays silent. Later, Will continues working at the construction site. Chucky isn't happy. He knows Will is a genius and doesn't belong there. Chucky tells him, in 50 years, I'll still be here, and I'm fine with that. But if you're still here, it'll be a waste. You have talent, and if you stay, it means we all lose. Seem told Professor that Will has always struggled with trust. Everyone he relied on in the past has let him down. If someone gets too close, he pushes them away before they can hurt him. It's his way of protecting himself. Shawn makes it clear, Will isn't just a problem to be solved. If we push him too hard, we'll lose him. Will came there suddenly, and then Professor leave. This time, Shawn has a file on Will, his entire therapy history. Inside, there are pictures proving that Will was a victim of child abuse. Will asks, have you ever felt real pain? Shawn then reveals his own painful past. My father was an abusive drunk. He used to beat me too. For the first time, Will realizes Shawn truly understands him. Will had suffered a painful childhood, and that trauma still haunted him. Through Shawn's therapy, Will slowly began to change. Shawn helped him realize that what happened to him was not his fault, and made him understand that he had the potential to do something great with his life. His friends would always support him, but now, he was finally ready for a new beginning. In the end, Will made the choice to leave his old life behind and go to Skylar. His friends would always support him, but now, he was finally ready for a new beginning. Hope you like this story.